So, I'd like to tell you that I have a problem. Because I talked about An American Tail, I now have all the songs currently stuck in my head.
So you're going to be singing them throughout the rest of the podcast, huh?
At least in my head. I'm going to try not to suddenly go into never say never again.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 46.
Everyone has things they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
to join us on our hill to die on.
So Ryan.
Yeah?
Did you know the Olympics happened in Japan?
It didn't get canceled? What?
No. Yeah, I mean, we live on the outskirts of Tokyo. And I guess, were you in quarantine during the Olympics, or you were flying back and in quarantine, right?
Yeah, I believe I was flying back and then in quarantine while it was wrapping up. I was actually in America while most of it was happening, though.
Mm-hmm. Since we're on the outskirts of Tokyo, I guess, and since I don't really ever go downtown, especially in the current times, I didn't even notice it happened in Japan. I feel a little bit bad about that.
Hey, you can still find merch around if you really feel that bad.
That's true. It's all in all the stores. I was considering what would it mean to go and sneak in to one of the track and field things, but I heard that they were actually pretty strict on the borders, so I'm glad I didn't even try.
Yeah, I'm really glad you didn't try either, because it would have been really hard to bust you out of jail while I was in quarantine. I had a whole heist planned. We were going to lower somebody from a roof.
Because you can't touch the ground and you can't raise the temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching them. It wasn't too bad watching them here in Japan. I don't get English commentary too much, but both NHK, the national broadcasting company here, and a website called Gorin had almost everything, I would think. Well, everything that I wanted to watch, at least. And I wanted to watch a bunch of things. Not everything, of course, but I wanted to watch a bunch of things. And they had everything that I wanted to watch either on one of those two places. Sometimes it was hard to figure out which one things were on. I'm like, wait a minute, is that? I was expecting sometimes it would be on NHK and I'd find out it's on Gorin. Or I was like, well, it had it on Gorin yesterday. And it's like, no, it's on NHK today. So occasionally I had that scenario, but I was pretty pleased. And I kind of like watching it without commentary. Yeah, I don't quite understand everything that's going on. I knew what was going on in the track events. I didn't know everybody's histories, and, that didn't get filled in while I was watching it. But I know at least enough of what's going on that I would explain it to my kids.
I have to say, I'm glad that somebody enjoyed watching it. Because, see, I know a lot about the sports ball and the going to the basketball pitch.
Speaking of the sports ball, one that was new to me was the 3-on-3 basketball. And my daughters kept asking me the rules, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know the rules. So that was kind of a new one to me. I was like, ooh, this is kind of interesting game.
They added 3-on-3 basketball?
Yeah.
Shows how much I paid attention. Sorry. For all the athletes who were involved in the Olympics, I'm proud of you for being dedicated to something noble and beautiful. It's just not for me.
I probably would enjoy watching more running events on TV, but I don't go out and search them up to see when they're on. Probably would enjoy them if I searched them up. I should be a little bit more proactive. Pretty much all I watch are the Olympics and the Ekiden. I mean, Ekiden happens every year on the 2nd and 3rd of January in Japan, so it's easy to remember that. And the Olympics, of course, it's well televised almost every time, so it's easy to watch that too. But probably should be more active on the World Champions and stuff. I would like to watch them more.
I heard a lot of news about things that were happening surrounding the Olympics, and I probably should have paid more attention, but I actually didn't watch anything within the Olympics themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, I heard a lot about everything that was going on with Simone Biles. I heard all the things that were happening with COVID being in the Olympic Village. Those were the sort of things that I was hearing a lot about. But I have no idea who got the most medals.
No, I don't know that either. It's actually kind of one of the nice things about not watching the commentators is that I'm not reading summaries or things like that. So nobody's like, and here's the counts of everything. I feel like I don't really need to know that. I like watching the events, but I don't need to know that pieces of information.
Yeah. Although I did hear about there was apparently a Japanese mayor or something who bit into one of the Olympians' medals.
Really?
Just to test if it was real gold. Yeah, there was a mayor from Nagoya who faced a barrage of criticism for suddenly biting an Olympic softball player's gold medal last month. And by the way, he just tested positive for COVID. Because I just searched for Japanese mayor bite medal, and the first thing that popped up was an article from Japan Times that said, the Japan mayor who bit the Olympians' gold medal now tests positive for COVID.
The end of the summer happened pretty quick, though, huh?
Yeah, the summer was, can I say not long enough?
My only last adventure in the summer, which I kind of feel embarrassed about in some ways.
Mm.
I was doing my summer running, and we were staying at a hotel out in Hakone that has a golf course attached. And I didn't even know it was going to be a golfer's hotel when I signed up for it. I guess I just missed it. It had good reviews and stuff, so I was like, oh, this looks nice. We'll stay here. Looking back now, it's obvious. I probably should have just seen it. But I wasn't looking at that statistic, right? I was looking at I was looking at reviews. What does the hotel have? I probably didn't even go to the actual hotel website. I was just looking at it in Rakuten Travel. So I think as soon as you go to the hotel website, you can see it right there. So I just wasn't looking for it. And of course, it was a nice hotel. That wasn't a problem at all. So I was doing my running, and I was like, yeah, I don't think they'll mind if I run on their golf course, right? If I do my summer running on their golf course, they won't mind at all, right? And, I'm sure the hotel probably would have said something. Of course, I didn't ask, because why would you ask? They'll just say no.
Yeah, it's easier to get forgiveness.
But I ran around a road that got me into the golf course in a back entrance. And I saw one or two golfers that were nice and smiled at me. But then I ran into a man he wasn't terribly unpleasant, but he was a bit upset that I was there. So then I realized, you know what? It was a mistake. And, this guy was unpleasant, but I shouldn't be here. He's kind of right. So then I decided that I need to ditch the golf course immediately. And this golf course is surrounded by woods because we're out in Hakone. There's nothing around. The problem was I was like halfway out, and I didn't want to turn around because if I turned around, I'd be going back into the golf course area, and I'd run into more people, and I can't continue because I'd have a lot further to go around the golf course. To exit to a road, the quickest would have been to go back. But I didn't want to go back because I'd have to go past that guy and stuff, so I didn't want to do that. So it's like, fine, I'll go into the woods. I don't know if that was my wisest choice, but it was definitely an interesting choice. Most of my woods experience in Japan has been in our school excursion.
You mean the one we talked about a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. And in those excursions, I don't think I've ever bushwhacked. I've always stayed on the path, and it's well marked, and you don't have to worry about anything.
Oh, my first year we bushwhacked. You remember the year where I had stomach flu?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that first day they bushwhacked. By the way, for those of you who have no idea, see episode 44 for more details.
So I decided I would go into the woods, and I'm glad I had my phone with me that day. Normally when I run, I don't have my phone with me, but when I'm running in places where I don't really know where I am, or I might have to change the road I'm on, I would run with my phone. So it's not too often when I'm near my house, but when I'm out and about in other places, I'll run with my phone. But I was able to try to at least see where a path might be, and of course there was no path there, so I bushwhacked quite a while. I tried to stay up on the hill as much as possible because I didn't want to climb up the hill again. But then I realized really I wanted to go into a valley to get near a stream that was going to lead me by some houses that would of course lead me to a road. And man, it took forever. It took forever. I think I spent 45 minutes in the woods on a run that was supposed to take me 60 minutes. And then, of course, the road that I exited out on was much further down the hill than the hotel. So then I had to run all the way back up the hill to the hotel. And, it took forever. Just going through deep overgrowth the whole way. I feel really bad for the plants I'm stomping on. Like, I'm making a mess. I just felt really bad for the woods. I finally got to a stream, which wasn't too bad. But then, of course, there's all kinds of rocks. In fact, one time I took my phone out of my pocket to make sure I knew where I was going. Then I stuck it back in my pocket, but then I pulled my phone out again a few minutes later, and I was like, oh, my phone's not in my pocket. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't lose my phone. And then I really don't know where I am. Luckily, I had my watch, and I could tell when I got into Bluetooth range again, because my watch would say, oh yeah, I'm connected to the phone again. But it was right about where I had put my phone into my pocket last, and I must not have really put my phone into my pocket. That's what must have happened. But man, that was very worrying. It took me forever. And then I'm all the way down the mountain, and I have to run all the way back up the mountain because as the eagle flew, the quickest road was going to be down the mountain. I could have probably skirted the golf course more, but then I still bet you I would have spent more time in the woods because I would have had to have skirted all the way around the golf course, and it was kind of large. So it was not a fun run, and I got back soaked because as I got down into the valley, I went right through that stream. Some parts I couldn't avoid going right into it, so I was like, yeah, fine, I'm going right into the stream. I didn't complete the distance I wanted to in the actual running part, but I was thinking I must have gotten enough exercise in the hiking part because I stopped my watch during the hiking part. And the next day I was super sore. So I was like, yep, okay, I got enough exercise in the hiking part that I'm okay. Didn't have to worry about it. And I kind of wanted to avoid this road too. I'm like in my whole planning of where I'm going to run while I'm up at this hotel. I was like, where should I run? Oh, I'll run at some of these roads. I'll run these roads. But I don't want to run on this road because it's the main road. And I think it's actually the road they run on in the Ekiden. And I said, well, I don't want to run on this road because there's cars and they come flying around the mountain. And I don't want to put myself in any of that danger. I mean, I'm sure I'll probably be safe, but still, why? Why do I need to even try running there? But of course, that's the road that it lets me out onto. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have to be careful as I go around these corners. Make sure that there's no cars coming in. Pay attention. So yeah, that was an unfortunate accident in my running this summer.
The quarantine and checking in process after I landed was very interesting. We landed a month ago, or I landed a month ago, the royal we. I landed a month ago, and first of all, I had a COVID test before I left. So to get on the plane, you had to have a COVID test, and it had to be a very specific kind of COVID test, yada, yada, yada. When you land, first, you have to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork, and while you're filling out that paperwork, you're waiting in a bunch of queues where you would sit down in a hallway and they would call in about 4 or 5 people, and then you would hand over your part of the paperwork, fill in any other missing stuff. And then after that, you would go and you had to put an app on your phone where they would track you and call you every single day so that they could record what kind of things were happening around you and make sure that you were actually in the house that you said you were going to be in. And yes, I had to leave location settings on the entire time on my phone. I believe you could leave your house to grab groceries, and that was about it. Oh, you could go to the hospital if necessary.
Good.
Yeah, you know. And so I stayed in my house with this application on my phone, and they would call me at about 3 o'clock every single day.
Did you know it was going to be 3?
I knew it was going to be between certain hours, but it just so happened that my phone always seemed to call at 3, like plus or minus 15 minutes.
Was the app available in the American store, or did you have to log into the Japanese store to get it?
Oh, no, it was available in the American App Store. You got it by scanning a QR code. While all this is happening and while you're installing all this stuff at the airport, then they had you do another test where you had to spit into a vial, and then they ran through another test just to make sure that you didn't happen to get COVID between your COVID test right before you got on the plane and getting off the plane. And then you had to wait around for those results to then go into your quarantine for 14 days. I will say the one nice thing was I was in Illinois before I came, and Illinois at the time that I left was doing well enough that it wasn't on the list of states that you have to be in a hotel for 3 days before they'll even let you go and quarantine at your own house.
Yeah, you were mentioning that because you might have been in Missouri, right? And that was going to be a problem?
Yeah, my grandpa and my aunts and uncles all live in Missouri, and so I had visited them, but in the last 14 days before your flight, you had to list all the different states that you were in during those last 14 days, which for me was just Illinois. I had been in Missouri, what was it, a month before we left? So, plenty of time.
We don't normally talk about programming on this podcast, even though we're both programmers by profession.
We don't?
We talk about it all the time?
No, I don't think we talk about it all the time. I think we've occasionally talked about it.
Well, I have an interesting one for you.
All right.
I've been fixing some bugs in some of the software I've been writing, and I ran into a really weird one, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I found an interesting thing in JavaScript. Did you know that 0 equals a blank string?
In JavaScript?
In JavaScript, 0 equals blank, and that tests true.
Okay.
And I mean, it makes sense because 0 is false and a blank string is false.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it that way, yes, it's equal. But of course, I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking that 0 did not equal blank string.
Because it equals 0.
Right. Because one's a number and one's a string for one. But if you think about them as both being false, then yes, they do equal each other. So it's a really simple fix. You just use 3 equals, which means it must be identical. And that solved the problem. But I was trying to figure out why.
Was this caused by the thing that I pointed out?
No, that was something else.
Okay.
Because I test for blank. I said, well, if they're not passing a value, then don't put anything out. Or if you're passing null, which is another valid blank. So if you're passing null or blank, then just exit out. They didn't send anything, so don't move on. So I was like, well, I should be getting past that test. I'm passing 0, not blank or null, so I should be getting past that test. And then I realized, oh, I'm not passing that test. So if you open up any JavaScript console and you type that in, it will say 0 equals blank is true. And I was like, whoa, 0 equals blank is true. Okay, there's the problem.
I didn't really even think about that. But yeah, in retrospect, it makes sense. But then again, I don't write in JavaScript as much as you do. So for me, most of my JavaScript is a lot more, I'm just going to use the word simple. Because yours...
It's getting more complex than I even maybe want. Especially when 0 is a valid value in what I'm doing. So I have to allow for that.
You are being so careful not to mention what you're doing.
Yeah. Anyway.
One of these days, I'll get you to announce what you're doing on here.
I guess I could say, grades. I work for a school, so. Anyway. I am now finding that I am tying myself in some knots, trying to allow for values that JavaScript doesn't always allow for, or things like that. I'm just trying to be careful when I do that, because I can't tie myself in too many knots.
So for Game Corner this week, I want to talk about Ghost of Tsushima.
Okay.
So the idea of Ghost of Tsushima is you are a samurai who lives on the island of Tsushima during the Mongol invasion. The story of the game goes as such. You are attacked by the Mongols, and your entire army is wiped out, and the Mongols take over the island. And it is up to you, who somehow cling on to life just barely, to try and fight and regain your island for Japan. One of the things that I really like about it is at the very beginning, you are fighting as a samurai. You are fighting as a traditional warrior, doing everything very honorably. But very quickly, your character discovers that doing everything honorably will not help him win this war. And so he has this internal conflict of the struggle between following his code, following his honor, or doing what is necessary to protect the people. Which is very interesting and very good to watch that internal conflict played out as this game. It is also very interesting because on most open world games, I have a specific style of playing. Everybody has their own style of playing various games. But for me, open world games, I tend to play as basically a stealth assassin. So I will sneak around a lot of places, jump out of a bush, stab people in the back, and then sneak away before anybody realizes I was there. This game likes to, early in the game at least, the game likes to guilt you a bit about playing the way that I play. Because you are a samurai. You are supposed to face your enemies face on, look them in the eye when you stab them. You are not supposed to hide in a bush and slice their neck. And so early in the game, they're like, his internal struggle keeps popping up. But yeah, I keep playing the way I do.
So I was wondering, did you play this on your PS4 or?
No, I played this on my PS5.
This is a brand new PS5, huh?
I'm playing it on the brand new PS5. It came out on PS4. They recently came out with the definitive edition on PS5 and also released that on PS4 as well. But the nice thing about the definitive edition is it also had an additional island which you could go and fight on, which also gave you a lot of history on the main character's background, the things that aren't covered in the main game. You get to find out a lot about the main character's relationship with his father, who had passed away before the game ever started. It is a very fun game. I really enjoy it. But yes, it is very interesting that this game likes to guilt me over the way that I like to play. It's the same way I play Skyrim. It's the same way that I play all these other games. Horizon Zero Dawn, I play the same exact way. I hide in a bush and I stab things in the back. Because, quite frankly, I like playing that way. Stealth games are fun for me. I really enjoy it. I think it's a great game. Really effective storytelling.
I haven't heard of it, so PS5, that's what triggered it for me. It's like, ooh, must be pretty.
It is very pretty. So in many games, there's like some way that they direct you to where your goal is, whether a map or something like that. In this game, they have the wind blow in the direction of whatever you've set your goal is. So you can watch like the grass bend in the direction towards where you're wanting to go. It's such a beautiful game.
Because we didn't want to do another pick 2 travel stories. Or pick 2 hiking up the mountain. Pick 2 hiking through the woods stories. Oh, wait, we did that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was like, pick 2 times that you had a plan and it fell through.
Pick 2 times you fired guns and you didn't want to. Pick 2 times you made iron. No.
Pick 2 times you angered God. I don't think I have enough good stories for that.
Pick 2 times you grew up with wolves. No. No.
Well, there was this one time, me and my brother Remus.
No, didn't have those stories. So we settled on the most generic.
Yeah.
We settled on pick 2 animated things.
2 animated things. I mean, all right.
Which is very wide.
That is so stinking wide that I'm going to ask you, are you going with animated films? Are you going with animated shows? Or are you going with animated things?
For me, one is a short movie and one is a TV show.
Okay. I was just making sure that there wasn't like, suddenly you're going to be talking about the animated flip book that you made in college or something.
I did actually make an animated flip book. My kids play with it all the time. Oh, well, I have some surprises for you still, though.
Why don't we have you go first then?
All right, sure. I will do my semi-weird one. I'm going to pick a stop-motion animation. I'm going to pick Wallace and Gromit, and I can't actually pick between the second and the third one.
Which are those?
The second one is The Wrong Trousers, with the penguin that controls Wallace wearing the robot pants.
Yes, I remember it.
That one's great. And A Close Shave, which is the one where Wallace and Gromit are window washers, and then they run into the lady. And she's all excited because they keep getting yarn because her pet robot dog, which you find as a robot later, is stealing sheep from all the neighbors and shaving them for yarn. So that's a great one too. It is a little bit more scary for my kids, but that one's a fun one. So A Close Shave and The Wrong Trousers, Wallace and Gromit. The amount of time it must have taken them to make those animations has got to be incredible. But it must have taken them years to make those videos. And not only that, like when you spend years making something like that, it better be good, right? Like, it better be excellent. And these 2 videos are excellent. If you haven't seen these 2, Wallace and Gromit stop motion animation, it's about a man and his dog, and they just go on adventures. And the first one is about them going to the moon and getting cheese, because of course the moon is made of cheese. And that is fun. It's excellent too. But the second 2 are just the best.
My nephew really loves the Curse of the Were-Rabbit one.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. I actually haven't really seen that. I have it, but I haven't actually watched it.
Yeah, he wanted to watch that every day.
It's just unbelievable animation. And such great stories, right? There's so much story going on with so little really happening. It's like all eyebrows. Because, of course, Gromit, the dog, doesn't talk. But his eyes and his eyebrows are just so expressive and just convey so much information all the time that you know exactly what's going on. And I'm sure that probably saves them money because they didn't have to have a voice or anything. But it really works. It really works. So you think about like Pixar and how they work on a story until it's perfect. These guys must have done something very similar, and they hit it out the park for those shorts. So they're excellent. Not Curse of the Were-Rabbit, that was the other one. The Wrong Trousers and A Close Shave. Most excellent films. Have you seen them?
Yes, I had them on VHS when I was younger.
Yes, I had them on VHS too. And I think I have them on DVD, which is how I have them now. So you would count those as animation, would you?
I would definitely count those as animation, yes. So you do not have to worry about me saying, this one does not count. Give me a new one.
It's not hand-drawn, but it's stop motion.
I was going to be pretty generous with what we considered animation. I was just wondering if we were going to limit it to like TV shows or movies or things like that, simply because there is a lot of good animation out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this was my problem. When you said, okay, let's do animated things, my mind went down the rabbit hole of all of the different animated...
Of Animaniacs? Sorry, just kidding.
Don't get me wrong, Animaniacs is fantastic.
It's in the name.
Actually, I am... Now that you threw that out there, I'm like, oh, should that be my pick? Because I kind of... Yeah, suddenly, no. Everything else gets shoved to the side for Animaniacs. Actually. Yeah, Animaniacs. Especially because of where it lives in my memories, but also how clever it was, even with the most simple things, like the Countries of the World song. If you ever need to memorize the countries of the world, unfortunately, it's a little out of date. Because, I mean, keep in mind, at that point, they sang about how Germany was now finally in one piece, if that gives you any idea. So do keep that in mind. But yeah, Animaniacs was just so great, and I loved all the little different bits and pieces they had in there, like Pinky and the Brain.
That came from there?
Yeah, that was from Animaniacs. It was one of the sketches, like there was Pinky and the Brain, there was the pigeons that were pretending to be from The Godfather. Then there was one where it was this little girl who kept getting into trouble and her dog that kept trying to like pull her out of oncoming traffic and things like that. Then there was the squirrels. Just so many different good, clever, funny, witty stories. And, you know, Animaniacs has a very special place in my heart. And I cannot believe that it took you making a joke about Animaniacs for me to go, nope. It doesn't necessarily beat everything else that I was going to say, but it took so much precedence in my brain that I went, no, I want to talk about Animaniacs right now.
Sounds good.
Yep. What's your second one?
My second one, I'm going to pick the animations of the bad guys in Carmen Sandiego. No, just kidding. I was thinking about though. Eartha Brute. All right, anyway, sorry. Moving on. Doesn't count, does it?
No, that one I'm not going to count.
Anyway, they were pretty funny. Actually, there is I should look it up. There is a documentary on how they made Carmen Sandiego. And speaking of out-of-date geography, they talked about how they had to add the tagline to the end of every Carmen Sandiego show that, you know, the information presented was accurate as of the recording of the show because things did keep changing, especially during reruns. So they had to put that tag on the end of all the reruns too. Anyway, because the country no longer existed. So
yeah, when it says, yeah, so we are investigating Czechoslovakia.
Exactly. Anyway, and Yugoslavia had all broken up. Remember that? Anyway.
So I assume based on all these jokes, you're going to pick Shaun the Sheep.
Shaun the Sheep. That's a good one too. No, or Chicken Run. Chicken Run's really good too. But no, I figured I'd only pick one stop motion animation because I figured, we're going to talk about animation. I'm going to pick a stop motion one. Anyway.
So Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
No, I haven't actually seen that movie.
Really?
But now that it's in Disney Plus, well, it's been in Disney Plus for a while, I think.
Yeah, it has.
I'm going to watch it. I have it bookmarked in my Disney Plus watch list. Anyway, no, I'm going to pick, all jokes aside, I'm going to pick Star Trek Lower Decks. Have you seen this yet?
I've seen ads for it. I haven't actually watched it.
You know, I started watching it, and it's super irreverent to Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And that bugged me for a bit. I was like, oh, but Star Trek, it's so like such a high place in my heart. And this girl is like really bashing the things that I hold dear. Once you get beyond that, and it took me a little bit to get beyond that, I must admit, probably took me too long to get beyond that. But once I got beyond that, it was super funny. I mean, obviously the show was actually made by people who love Star Trek, right? So like it shouldn't have taken me this long to get over that. But it did, and then I got over it, and the show is hilarious, especially if you're a fan of Star Trek. And that's where it started winning me over to. It was like, oh, these jokes are funny because I know what's going on. And in some ways, I feel bad for people who watch Star Trek right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you're starting Star Trek right now and you watch shows like Picard and Lower Decks, especially Picard is like you have to have put in the hours of 7 seasons of Next Gen. I mean, even in Picard, they talked about some of the Romulan stuff that was only introduced in the last few seasons of Discovery. So, like, anyway, you have to have a lot of knowledge of Star Trek, really, to watch Picard. Lower Decks, I think, having knowledge helps you, but it's a fun show either way. I think you could probably get around Lower Decks. But still, I mean, again, I feel like they're writing for people who have a lot of knowledge, and I feel like if you're watching that show for the first time, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, that joke probably makes more sense if you've watched Star Trek for a long time. So I kind of feel bad for some people that Discovery, I think you can probably jump into that show no problem without knowing much of Star Trek. You know, and how many people nowadays watch Star Trek and don't know that Spock exists, right? Which is kind of a big thing in season 2. People who watch Star Trek now, even people who are just watching Star Trek now, at least know that Spock exists in previous incarnations of Star Trek. I'm thinking. I don't think there's anybody watching Star Trek that doesn't know of that. Anyway, so yeah, you might not understand everything that's going on with Captain Pike, but even that's not really necessary. They catch you up on some of that stuff. So I think that Star Trek probably is too referential to itself currently now. But Lower Decks, especially if you have put in the hours of watching Star Trek, Lower Decks is hilarious. And I'm sure it's hilarious even if you haven't put it in. But I definitely enjoyed Lower Decks. It was over quickly. I hope they're releasing a second season coming up. Because I think it was only like 10 half-hour episodes, so it went by very fast. I would like to see more episodes with those characters because they are funny.
Well, I will get around to watching it. You know, with all the other things that I say I'll get around to. I will eventually get around to them.
It is kind of nice in some ways to not be living in America in terms of the streaming of the Star Trek shows. It took a while for Lower Decks to come to Japan. That was a bit disappointing. Discovery airs on Netflix here in Japan, and it's released like the same day it's released in America. That's really nice. Picard, I think, was released simultaneously also. But Lower Decks came out like 4 months later. So I was wondering why nobody picked it up. And I think what it is Netflix has first dibs on any Star Trek coming out. And if Netflix doesn't want it overseas, then it goes to Amazon, and Amazon picked it up here. So Amazon has Picard and Lower Decks, which is fine for me. I enjoyed them both there. So anyway, I'm picking that one, yes. You should watch it too. It's funny.
I will. So, again, the problem is there's just too many. I want to pick all of them.
I'm sure we're going to do another animated flick coming up, so we can do another pick animated stuff again.
But what if I want to pick, like, Shrek and...
Shrek 1, 2, 3, and 4, all in one, and the Christmas special?
I'm sorry. I can't.
Pick Toy Story 1, 2, 3, and 4. Can I pick all of Pixar?
Sure.
You're going to claim all of Ghibli, though, huh?
Yeah.
Is this a draft?
It's almost as if this is so broad. I think I'm going to try to avoid Japanese anime because that's a whole field in and of itself. But I'm going to pick another one from my childhood because songs from it randomly pop into my head at least once a week. And that is An American Tale.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, An American Tale is the story of Fievel. And Fievel is a mouse who his parents bring him to America, and then there is a storm, and he ends up getting separated from the rest of his family. And goes on adventures and all looking to find his family and reconnect with the Mousekowitzes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It has a very special place in my heart. I loved that movie growing up. I mean, Dom DeLuise as a giant cat is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Don Bluth movies, you know, I forget how many movies he actually made, but he had some really strong animated films. So, just as a reminder, he was the director, writer, and producer of The Secret of Nim.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I just bought that movie.
An American Tale, Land Before Time.
All Dogs Go to Heaven.
All Dogs Go to Heaven, Rock-a-Doodle.
Oh, Anastasia.
Yeah. Anastasia, now that's a good one. Titan AE. I should rewatch that one.
Oh, he was on The Rescuers, Winnie the Pooh,
Yeah.
Robin Hood. He was a character animator on Robin Hood.
He has such amazing movies that he's been involved with. Yeah, like all these movies, I remember watching them growing up.
Actually, I was going to make a joke about the Brave Little Toaster, and he was a part of that one too. That's funny.
Like, I saw all these movies growing up that we've listed. And I think one of the only ones that he was involved with that I did not see was the offshoot from Anastasia called Bartok the Magnificent. I think that's like the only one I never saw.
Yeah, Anastasia was pretty good.
Anastasia was good. I don't think Bartok needed a side movie. But, I mean, Land Before Time, that movie...
That movie made a franchise.
Well, that series should have ended before it did. All that to say, I've gone down the trail of looking up things about Don Bluth, but An American Tale is just... It has a special place in my heart, and as I said, the songs regularly get caught in my head. All of them, actually. I don't think there's a single song from that movie that doesn't somehow get caught in my head at some point.
All right, well, we have a weird one today.
Yeah, we do.
I think this is going to be weird in a few ways, because this is going to be a textured drink, I think, right? Isn't that what Subutsubu means? It's called Nata de Coco Pine, which Nata de Coco is those hard cube things. Not hard. They're like gummy cubes. We had it once a while back, too.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize what it was at the time, and we learned about it after we released the podcast. What did we have? It was a Nata de Coco drink also. Yeah, I think it was in the Wanting to Complete the Project, the Emperor's Soul episode we did, and we had mango yogurt, and it surprised us because it tasted good, but we didn't know what those gummy cubes were, and I found out later that they were nata de coco, which is some kind of gummy cube. Actually, I don't know what it is, but it is.
Well, it's nata de coco.
Whatever that is. I don't actually know what that is, but it's in the list of ingredients anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we have another one of those, and subutsubu means like you can feel it when you drink. Like they have some jelly type drinks that say subutsubu on them.
Subutsubu.
It's one of those onomatopoeia means.
This handy term is used for clusters of tiny balls, seeds, or grains. Food-wise, this can mean sprinkles, caviar, Dippin' Dots, or sweet bean.
Oh yeah, for on too. Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah, so this is not going to be just pineapple juice that we're drinking down. This is going to have things in it.
It's going to be thick.
And well, that's one of the questions I have is the drink itself going to be thick, or is nata de coco the thing that they're talking about, subutsubu?
Yeah, is it going to be like basically chunks at the bottom?
It'll be interesting. 45% fruit juice, though. That's kind of nice. I'm sure it makes it more healthy.
Yes, especially because we're drinking this at way too late.
Is this the first drink we've had that's a can?
Yeah, I think most of the other ones we get are bottles. This is actually a metal can.
And we've had glass with the Sakura Cola and the Mikan Cola a little while back. But I think this might be the first one that's a can. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Let's give it a try, huh?
Yep.
Smells like pineapple.
It smells like just pure pineapple juice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say the subutsubus are the nata de coco, but they're much tinier than I expected them to be.
Oh, yeah. I was expecting like full cubes.
These are very tiny. More like the sprinkle size.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like 2 sprinkles stuck together. Maybe that big. I thought they were going to be like blueberry sized, but these are very tiny.
It's an interesting texture.
It is.
Because it is a smooth pineapple juice with floating particles. And they're not hard particles. They've got some give, so it's like...
Strong jello, right?
Yeah, strong jello.
Kind of like konnyaku maybe, but that's a Japanese thing too.
Yeah, and that's the problem is that's the one I was thinking of. And I was like, I can't use that as an example. Because most people won't.
Yeah, you have to know what konnyaku is.
Mm.
I think drinks like this, where you kind of have to make sure you're filtering what you're drinking. I mean, I guess it's probably okay to swallow them. They're tiny enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think drinks like this where I'm kind of filtering what I'm drinking drive me a little nuts because it's like, do I really want to be swallowing these? I got to filter them out and chew them and then swallow. But maybe I don't really have to do that. The pineapple part is good. And the nata de coco doesn't have much taste. I think I wouldn't buy this though.
So here's where I'm at. The pineapple juice is good, but if it was just the pineapple juice, I feel like it'd be too... It wouldn't have enough for me to come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
The Nata de Coco makes it different enough that I'm not opposed to finishing it, but would I actively seek it out? Probably not.
Trying to figure out if it's going to be a 4 or a 5.
I'm going to say it's a 5 for me.
Mm.
I could even go up to 5.5, simply because I like this more than I like all the Calpis that we've been drinking lately. I guess I'm grading on a curve is really what it's coming down to. Is it as good as the honey lemon cider? No. Is it better than the green apple Calpis? I would say yes.
To me, it's not 5. I think it was a good point that you made that for you, the Nata de Coco is adding to it. I think for me, the Nata de Coco is subtracting from it. I think I would rather have just the pineapple juice. So I think I'm going to say 4.
Given that we have this very sweet pineapple drink, I think we should have some KitKats.
Mm-hmm.
So this time we brought a seasonal KitKat flavor that they pulled out. It looks like they're preparing for Halloween way too early.
Oh, yes. All the stores are. Mm-hmm.
But there is a KitKat. The one that I grabbed was a apple cinnamon KitKat.
Since you gave these to me yesterday, I brought them home. And my wife was like, "Can I try one?" And I was like, "Sure, but you can't tell me how you think of it." So she's like, yep, I have feelings, but I can't tell you what I think of them.
Wow, that is a strong smell.
Ooh, they are very pink in color. Well, like pink purplish. I mean, it was definitely a purple wrapper, but they're very light.
I would almost call it a lavender.
Yeah, light lavender. That's actually a good description of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a strong cinnamon smell. All right, let's see. I would say cinnamon is the overriding taste, but I do taste the apple too, I guess. It's a little bit more of an aftertaste.
I taste it. So, my closest approximation to this flavor, somebody tried to make an artificial flavor based around the church potluck apple cinnamon cobbler. That's what it is. There was a church potluck. They had this really good apple cobbler, and then somebody was like, all right, we're going to try to make an artificial flavor that's based on this.
It's not bad. I think it's pretty good. I'm thinking I'm going to say 7. Yeah, I do taste the apple more now.
Yep, I'm saying 7.
I think it's pretty good. Not as good as some of the best ones, but still very good. Yeah, that's a good flavor.
It would win for me if it was either a little bit stronger on the apple or it tasted a little bit less artificially. But, I mean, how much can you ask for not tasting artificial from a KitKat?
I'm pleasantly surprised by that apple cinnamon. I think I was expecting worse.
Well, let's just hold our breath that the next one is as good, because I'm not expecting a lot of good things from that one.
So, Ryan.
Yes.
We watched a movie.
Yes, we did.
It was an animated movie.
Really?
I noticed.
Well, I have to bring you animated films every once in a while. Actually, I just have to ask, in retrospect, have all the animated films been from me?
No, I had the Brad Bird one. What's it called? Iron Giant.
Oh, yes. You had Iron Giant.
Well, and we both did Your Name early on.
Yeah, before we did the breaking apart who was bringing what.
What are the other animations?
Weathering with You, this one.
Oh, Meet the Robinsons. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Little Doris sleeps with the fishes. But yeah, I thought, hey, we should watch some more Miyazaki films. Because
this is the first one.
Yeah, this is the first one I'm showing you. I like Miyazaki films. This is actually my favorite one. I was thinking about that earlier today while I was rewatching the film, where I was like, is this still my favorite? And, I mean, there's a lot of really good films that he has, because I really like this one. I really like Spirited Away. I really like Howl's Moving Castle. I do like some of his more silly ones that don't get as much notice, like The Cat Returns.
This is only my third Miyazaki that I've seen.
You've seen this one.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen
Kiki's Delivery Service.
Kiki's Delivery Service.
And Totoro.
Well then, I have a few that I might need to add to our list.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see the one based on the Wizard of Earthsea, Ged or something like that.
Oh, yes.
I read the book forever ago, so.
His films are fantastic, and I just really wanted to have an excuse to watch this film, and I did not realize, A, how long it had been since you've seen this one, and B, I didn't realize how few of them you actually saw.
Yeah, I mentioned this last week, I guess. I haven't seen this since college. I watched it in the weirdest conditions where I was reading a transcript while watching it in Japanese.
While we're on that subject, how did you watch it this time? Did you watch it in English? Did you watch it in Japanese with English subtitles?
I watched it in Japanese with English subtitles,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went back and turned on the English language track because I had forgotten that there was good actors in this.
Oh, yeah.
So then I turned on the English language track and watched a few key parts.
I will say, because I originally watched this in English, there are a few of the voices that I like better as English voices, and then there are a few voices that I like better as the Japanese voices.
Sorry, we're getting into feelings now, but I do think that Jigo sounds more slimy in English than he did to me in Japanese. Maybe that just could be perception, but that's what I felt.
Well, in English, it's Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah, I wonder if he's often cast. I did notice that this was the second time in a row you brought a Claire Danes movie to the table.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Last time was Stardust, and this time she plays San.
Oh, yeah, she does.
Just happens to be.
Huh. Didn't even think about that.
Not that it makes a big difference at all, but interesting. Anyway, sorry. If you haven't seen it, you should see it.
Before we go any further,
We're going to get into spoilers, so.
we're going to totally go into spoilers. So before we go any further, let me provide you with a bit of a summary so that you can get caught up and get involved in this discussion. The story of Princess Mononoke centers around the character of Ashitaka. When Ashitaka's village is attacked by a demon, he faces off with the being, trying to protect his home. He ends up killing the demon, but in doing so, becomes cursed. The elder of the village lets him know that this curse will kill him, painfully. The only hope that he has is to leave and go to wherever the demon, a boar god, came from. So Ashitaka leaves, and goes on a journey to find the place that the boar came from. This journey leads him to meet Chigo, a monk who directs him to a forest where gods live. When he arrives, he finds a few wounded men, wounded from a recent attack on their caravan. He also finds and meets San, the titular Princess Mononoke. She, however, tells him to leave the forest. Ashitaka collects the wounded, carries them through the forest until they reach the other side, and come out near the bank of Tatara, the Iron Town. There, he meets Lady Eboshi, the leader of the town, and gains some insight into the history of the town and how it cleared away the forest to get to the iron, but also how Nago the boar god tried to protect the forest, but was shot and driven away by Eboshi. Nago, the boar god, who later became a demon that attacked and cursed Ashitaka. In the middle of the night, San and the wolves attack the city, with San's objective to kill Eboshi for hurting the forest and mortally wounding her wolf mother Moro. Eboshi responds to San by saying that there are some women who would also like some revenge for the men who were killed in the wolf raids. Both San and Eboshi fight. They are only stopped by Ashitaka, who is determined to stop the cycles of fighting and hate. He knocks out both fighters and drags San safely out of the village, but not before he too is shot and wounded. After nearly dying, San decides to take Ashitaka to the spirit of the forest, the god of life and death, to see if the spirit will heal him. He does, but only the bullet, and not the curse. At this time, Akoto, the boar god, arrives with the other boars, determined to drive off the humans and save the forest. At the same time, Jigo arrives in Irontown to force Eboshi to hunt the spirit of the forest, as the spirit is supposed to give eternal life to the possessor of its head. This leads to a great battle, where the wolves ally with the boars, and the humans, wolves, and boars all die in great numbers. Eboshi leads a group following a wounded Akoto to the forest spirit. The wounded Akoto starts to become a demon, and Moro, the mother of San, needs to save San from Akoto as she is being cursed. After she does so, the forest spirit decides to release Moro, grievously injured, and Akoto, from life. It is at that moment Eboshi decides to shoot off the head of the spirit. This turns it into a blob of death, killing anything and everything that it touches. Ashitaka runs to try to stop this from happening, but was too late. The spread of death would only end when the head would be returned by human hands, so Ashitaka and San run after Jigo to retrieve the head. They corner him, convince him to release the head, returning it to the headless god of death, and this releases a burst of life into the surrounding area, healing both Ashitaka and San of their injuries and curses. After all this, the world now lacking a forest spirit tries to sort itself out. Ashitaka decides to live in the city, and San in the forest, and they decide to act as a bridge, linking the two worlds, trying to find some way that the two can coexist. What were your initial feelings about this movie now that you've watched it properly?
Well, it surprised me that I didn't really remember any of it. Watching it again, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know if I didn't catch it the first time. I think I understood it when I watched it the first time. I just think I don't remember it. And I think it didn't resonate with me too much. So I wouldn't say it's my favorite Miyazaki film.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a nice story, but it didn't resonate with me too much. There were a few things that threw me off. Again, these are all minor, but I was wondering, like, why is her name San? And I was wondering if her name was San because she's the third child of Moro, the mother wolf. Is that the reason why she's San? Or is she San because she's a person? I don't know, that was interesting. I don't think they ever explained that, right?
I think it was just a name that
Moro called her. One of the things, too, is I thought was, wait, isn't this story about Ashitaka? Isn't it about him? I was wondering, why is the movie called Princess Mononoke when it seems like Ashitaka grows the fastest in this movie, right? He makes the jump from I'm doing my thing to I'm helping everybody and understanding how best to help everybody pretty quickly. Where Mononoke and Lady Eboshi don't really make the jump as fast as he does into, no, we need to care for everyone. And I mean, obviously Lady Eboshi makes the jump last, but they're all brought along by him. He's all like, no, we can do both sides and everybody can win. Whereas they all take it a lot slower than he does.
Yeah.
So I found it interesting that the movie's named after, it's not a minor character in the movie, but more minor than the main character is, right?
It's the fact that, yes, it's named after her, but it is named after her because she is the most inciting incident-causing character.
No, I would say that that's true. I mean, I actually surprised how much Jigo had to do with the story. I thought at the earlier he wasn't going to be a very large character. I thought, oh, he'll just save him that one time, and it was just someone Ashitaka met on his way. But then later, Jigo is playing actually a major role in what's going on. Yeah. But still, and even Lady Eboshi plays a major role in what's going on. But still, Lady Eboshi and Jigo are still minor compared to Mononoke Hime or Princess Mononoke.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say that she's the heroine. She does a lot to move the plot along, and I do like she does make the turn at the end. Oh, humans can be okay. Not obviously, not all are. But humans can be okay, and she does make that leap at the very end. I did find it interesting that Ashitaka is not going to go back to his hometown and tell everybody he's okay. I guess he's going to stay in the ironworks?
So, a couple of things. At the very beginning, his town says, because you are leaving the town, you have to be dead to us because of our laws.
Okay, I didn't get that. Okay.
When he left.
He's not coming back. Okay.
He is not allowed to come back. So that's why he's just like, well, this is where I am now. So that's the first thing.
Does this story take place in Japan?
Yes.
I mean, I think so. I mean, I was leaning toward that. I mean, because I guess they said the guns were from China originally anyway.
Apparently, it's supposed to be set in like the late Muromachi era, which is like probably in the late 1500s-ish. It is supposed to be in Japan, yes.
We did make a joke a few episodes ago that Miyazaki makes it so that the scenery is a character. And of course, yes, the sceneries are characters in this one.
The whole world has its own being, its own character, yeah.
It's growing and dying, and you're feeling for it, right? You're hurting when the deer god turns into that blob of death, like you're saying. You hurt for the world as it's touching things. Even as the pigs run through the forest, you're hurting for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was noticing the scenery makes you feel for it, at least. It's a character in and of itself. I think one thing that took me out of it a little bit, because I was going to say the animation was again, excellent. You felt the stuff that's going on. I think the one thing that took me out of it was the animals talking. Not that even in Japanese, it seemed like the humans' mouths moved with the words. Always. I mean, many times it did, but it didn't always seem that way. But the fact that the animals' mouths didn't move at all with their words, I think took me out of it a little bit. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I had no problem with that. I will say the animal voices are some of the ones that I like hearing in English more. The voice of Moro and the voice of Okoto, both of them, I like hearing them better in English because it tends to flow with the animation a bit better. And I also think that the voice actors in English did a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it really works. I had no issue with the animals talking because in my mind, the reason why I'm like, okay, that's fine, is because these are supposed to not be necessarily animals. They're supposed to be Mononoke. They're supposed to be spirits. They're supposed to be small g gods.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
These are beings of some supernatural power. So that's why I'm just like, how they talk, that is where I suspended some disbelief there. Does that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I can see that. I mean, I was actually wondering I was trying to figure out some of my own headcanon on that, were the gods speaking directly into your head? That's why the mouths weren't moving, but it's probably not it, but still.
They were moving. It's just that they weren't moving to saying the same words. They were moving with how a boar would move its mouth.
Right.
They're moving with how a wolf would move its mouth, rather than necessarily having the wolf say, "Yo, what's up?" and have the mouth move around like it's saying, "Yo, what's up?" What else took you out of it, I guess, is the best way to put it.
I would say that's pretty much it. I think one thing I didn't quite understand until my second time through, and I think this is just me missing it the first time, when I watched some of the key scenes again with dubbing, I think I didn't quite understand, because it wasn't key to the movie, but I didn't quite understand the feud that Eboshi was having with the samurai. I didn't quite understand where that was coming from. Jigo explains that, that she's having a feud with Asano, I think his name was.
Yep.
And that's what was diverting some resources that direction. So I didn't catch that the first time, but it's not key to the plot because I understood what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't think anything else took me out of it. I mean, again, this had good characters again. I liked even Lady Eboshi's guard. Had traits, even, what's his name? The guy that got rescued by Ashitaka Koroku. I mean, he had traits even, shows up a few times. Toki, of course, comes back. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I just don't think it was a favorite, that's all.
All right. Before we move on, then, I'd like to make my...
Yeah. I want to hear why you think it's your favorite. Yeah, what do you see from it?
I think for me, it is a mix of the characters and the themes that brings me in. One of the things I really loved about this was, apart from Ashitaka, who he was essentially the paragon of the story of, I'm always trying to do what's right. Apart from him, everybody else, there were no good, there was no evil, there was just what they desire, what they want. They were all morally gray characters who had both good things about them and bad things about them. Perhaps the only one who was more towards the bad guy category would be Jigo, but even he cared for people somewhat, but very, very small. He was more manipulative than anything else. I mean, for example, we have Lady Eboshi, who, yes, she is clearing away the forest. Yes, she is destroying the forest. Yes, she has hurt the spirits that live there. But on the other hand, she's brought in lepers into her town and protected them and cared for them and treated them like humans. She bought up contracts of brothel women so that they could have a legitimate job working in the bellows and didn't have to spend their lives in a brothel. You had San, who, above all else, she cared for keeping the forest safe, and yet also was driven by a absolute loathing and hatred for Eboshi. You have all these characters who have both good and bad about them, and it wasn't a flat, oh, this is clearly the good guy and this is clearly the bad guy. I loved that all the characters were just shades of gray. That's one of the things that I love about this story. And I think it's also this world. I mean, you have everybody who's looking at everything and been like, yeah, the world is awful, but we're still trying to make something good happen here. The line, you're cursed, but so is the whole world, actually comes out of multiple characters' mouths throughout the story. The first person who says that is Jigo. And yeah, there's slight alterations on it. And then Lady Eboshi also says something very similar to Ashitaka about that. You're cursed, but yeah, so is the whole world, and we're just trying to make something good out of it. The realism in the characters and this whole world being a very living, breathing thing where you know that regardless of everything that is presented here, there are other things that are happening in this world. You mentioned that Asano attacking the town. Yeah, it's presented as a side story, but I think for me, part of that is it's presented as a side story because that's the reality of their life. And because Ashitaka is not involved in that, he only sees these outcomes. Like, oh, suddenly this samurai army is attacking the town. He had no involvement, but it's still something that's happening in the world. And I think those are the sort of things that I really do like about this. I mean, we can get into trying to find balance between these different worlds is a really awesome theme, which I do really like that the ending is Ashitaka saying, all right, so I'm going to go and help Irontown rebuild. I know you can't deal with humans, but you want to help the forest get back kind of sorted. You do that. It came down to them talking about like being a bridge between these two worlds. And I really like all those things.
I definitely did like the environmental message.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that everybody at the end of the movie picked it up too.
Mm-hmm.
But I do fear that this is a generational thing. When Ashitaka and Eboshi all pass on, are they going to have been able to teach the upcoming generation? Because now there's no more gods to remind them because they've killed them all off or they died off. Are there going to be anyone else to pass this on? And I hope so, but still.
That's the interesting thing is in this world, Okoto was saying, look at the boars. Each generation we're growing smaller and dumber. He's like, this is what's happening to our world.
Because not all the boars could speak.
And it seemed like the cause of that was the weakening of that spirit world of like, oh, the forest is being cut down and that's causing this break. All in all, I really like it. It is my favorite one. I think it really does come down to the characters for me. Because each of these characters, they're wonderful, believable characters who all have a depth to them. And that's why I love this story.
I mean, because you keep discovering new things about them as the show keeps going on, right? You're introduced to them and you get your first impression of them, but you continually learn more about them.
And I mean, what's interesting is I've seen this movie many times, and I even realized things in watching it this time that I apparently had missed before. For example, when the spirit regains the head and then explodes into this burst of life, I never noticed that among the people who get healed, one of the lepers who was in a boat, suddenly their bandages fall off and they're healed.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
When the forest spirit explodes into this explosion of life, all these different people are getting healed. And that's why at the end, Ashitaka is saying, yes, you were saying that the forest spirit is dead, but the forest spirit is actually alive and is in everything. I also did really like the fact that the forest spirit was both the god of life and death. Again, it comes back to the fact that it was an idea of balance. I thought it was excellent.
I mean, I'm glad I watched it. That wasn't the problem. And I'm especially glad I watched it because I wanted to remember what I watched in college, and then I discovered that I didn't remember it at all. So it was good to watch it again for that reason.
Hmm.
I don't know what my favorite of the three now that I've watched, of the three Ghiblis. I think that Kiki might be my favorite, but Totoro was pretty good too. So Mononoke Hime is going to be third, but I don't know where. I don't know which one was first, I mean.
I just realized something. Maybe you should listen to the English script at some point. And this is kind of funny based on our last movie. The film was dubbed into English with a script written by Neil Gaiman.
Oh, so 2 Neil Gaimans in a row. There you go. I mean, I was interested to discover, even because I left the English subtitles on, that the English script had more to it than the Japanese subtitles. Usually it's the other way around, because usually they're trying to fit the words into the character's mouth, right? And the subtitles have more information.
Yeah, I think it's because in Japanese, there were certain words and phrases that were used that would convey a lot of shorthand if you knew the background to it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, instead of demon, which was the word that was used in English, like all these gods were turning into demons, the phrase that they used in Japanese was Tatarigami, which is, the translation is basically a curse god.
So they were still gods, they just turned to the dark side in some ways.
In the Shinto religion, Tatarigami are powerful gods or spirits that bring all forms of calamity upon their victims, such as death and destruction, fire and famine, plague and war. It comes to a knowledge of Shintoism. That's why in my brain I'm like, there's a lot of subtext that's hidden in some of the languages. I felt they added in English because that picks up from some of the subtext that many people might not catch.
Well, thanks for bringing it, Ryan.
Yep, I'll have to have you watch another one at some point, because I like his films in general, is the thing. I understand that this was not your favorite one. I do hope that you still enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to get around to the other ones at some point.
Sounds good to me.
Just trying to decide which one I would have you go to next. So, Nate, what are you having me watch and or see next week?
Yes. Next week I have another Don Knotts movie for you.
You're having me watch a Don Bluth movie?
No, Don Knotts. Sorry. A while back in episode 16, we watched Ghost of Mr. Chicken, which was a pretty funny movie. At least I think it was. And I think you agreed mostly, I think. So, yep, I'm going to watch another one of those called The Shakiest Gun in the West, which is about Don Knotts going west, basically.
Fievel goes west. All right.
No. You can watch that too if you want, but we won't talk about it. So, The Shakiest Gun in the West, I think this was my favorite Don Knotts movie growing up. So, I'm kind of curious to see if it will still hold that after a rewatch. Will it still hold that position? I don't know. Maybe not. But I remember it being really funny when I was growing up. So I want to watch it again too. So I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Well, let's hope that it holds up.
Otherwise, we're going to do a quick switcheroo, that's for sure.
No. If it doesn't hold up, we'll have a talk about it.
We'll still bang on it.
We can talk about, well, these are the things that really, it didn't age well.
I don't think this will have, well, let me say that now and be wrong later, but I don't think it will have things that don't age well. I'm just curious if it won't be quite as funny. That's what I'm curious about.
All right, so Shakiest Gun in the West. I'm looking forward to it. So, regardless of what Nate says, I hope you found something nice.
Hey now.
I hope you found something nice in Mononoke Hime and this hill that I was willing to die on. We appreciate all of our listeners coming along on this journey with us. And if you ever thought to yourself, hey, I really like these guys and wish I could do something to support us, know that you can. You can visit myhilldadion.com/members for more details. But know that the conversation doesn't have to end here. The discussion can continue with us through Reddit at the subreddit My Hill to Die On, or contacting us through Twitter at My Hill to Die On. Or you can reach us by email, which is, to no one's surprise, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. And finally, we upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is also named, say it with me now, folks, My Hill to Die On.
and we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
to join us on our hill to die on.
I definitely said get just this time.
Get just.
I think we need to keep a little stat on. What do we say? Just get or get just?
I just assume we're always right. No matter what we say, we're always right. There are weird teachers out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not me, but they're out there. Why do I keep referring to myself as we?
Today you're feeling very royal.
Well, I always believe that people should just really look up to me.
You got to grow more then.
Oh.
Speaking of weird animated things, I took a video when my wife and I were dating.
Mm-hmm.
My wife used to have this hand signal she would make frequently. So I took a video of us doing that hand signal. Then I stripped all the frames, and it was an interlaced video, so it made this really hard. Stripped all the frames and tried to make them progressive scan because I took it on mini DV tape, right? It imported into my computer. Took all the frames, made them into pictures, and I took two 10-second video, probably even less than 10, 2 5-second videos. I lined them up in order on pictures, printed the pictures at the photo store, then cut them as they were stacked in order, and then put one of those binder clips on them. And it works as a flipbook, although I did it in the wrong order. I did it in forward to back, which still works, but flipbooks are supposed to go back to forward. It still works, and it works both ways, really, because it's just we're doing something with our hands. So yeah, my kids play with it all the time, actually. They think it's hilarious, because I had a really long beard back then. Anyway, it's fun. My kids still play with it. They still find it and play with it all the time. So yes, it's not that. I'm not picking that.
I was thinking of all the movies that were not Disney, but animated that came out at the same time, and was like, he must have just done all of the ones that weren't Disney. And I was wrong. Somebody else did a few of them. But yeah, Anastasia, Titan A.E., Rockadoodle, All Dogs Go to Heaven, Land Before Time, An American Tail, and An American Tail 2, Fievel Goes West. Was he actually involved in Fievel Goes West, or did he just go, yeah, no, I'm not doing that one?
I don't know. I don't see that here. I haven't seen
No,
that
it
one
was
yet.
just Steven Spielberg for that one, as the producer. Although, you look at some of the choices of actors who actually got involved in it, and it boggles the mind.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is what happens when we look things up.
Yeah. All right, stop. Yep.
We got to stop this. Yeah. Otherwise, we're just going to be looking up interesting facts about Fievel and...
Yep. Fievel Goes West.
Fievel Goes... no, not Fievel Goes West. Just An American Tail.
An American Tail. Yep. Good pick.
Which is also named, say it with me now, folks, My Hill to Die On. That took far too many attempts to get through that. I do not know how to talk anymore. How do words work?